And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Nevada City, the game. Nevada City is a fairly sprawling game from Rio Grande in which you are building up Nevada City. You're doing so by worker placement, using different workers, but this game does a lot, and I mean a lot. I'm not going to give you a complete everything in this game, but hopefully this will help you figure it out. Let's go. The game is played over the course of several years, and in each year there's going to be event cards put down based on what year it is. So for example, in 1855, I put a card every year. 1856 through 58, I'm only putting a card here, 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 and here. And so each round you'll check, is there an event card? Yes. You'll reveal that event card and do whatever it says. So for example, this one says, for the remainder of the year, each character may spend one action to pan in the local river and find a silver. And if there is no card there, then you just take the turn without flipping the card over and doing whatever it says. There are some starting events that will show up right away, which are usually fairly positive, but the events can be negative and such as the game goes by. Players will then be taking actions with one of their characters. You pick one character, take all their actions, and that's the action that character will take. As I said, these bonuses on the side may affect the actions. You'll see here, I got three people with 2 actions and one person with 3, but another family, the Wine family, has one with 1, one with 2, and 2 with 3, and that's definitely not John Wayne. It's John Wine, so don't be confused. You can use an action and place it on a tile and produce goods on that tile. And in fact, if you have that tile on your thing, you can do more than one. So I could produce goods on this mine and on this mine. The number of goods that you produce on a mine is controlled by the market value, or I'm sorry, the production up here. This is going to be loaded at the beginning of the game. There's always one of each here in production, and there's always 2 silvers and 1 of the cattle in market value. The rest are drawn randomly. So for example, here, this means if I'm operating a mine, I'm only going to get 1. But if there was 2 great cubes, I'd get 2 when I produce into mine. And this will change as time goes by. And then the number of cubes in here will show you the value of each of those goods. There's also buildings where you can go to. And at the beginning of the game, there's only a few buildings. But as the game goes by, more buildings are going to be built, and players are going to be able to go to some of these buildings and take the actions on those buildings. Some of those just give you benefits, but like for example, this one here at the military store, you can go here and you just go on here and purchase up to 3 items. Your choice. So I can buy different goods there. At the sheriff here, I can pay 4 to hire a worker from the discard pile. Workers are kind of useful. There's workers up here, and they come in the game each round, and you'll notice that these workers also provide actions and special abilities. You can make your family bigger. City Hall is one of the buildings you can go to, and this is a pretty big one because when you go here, you can claim it costs 2, 3, and then as many people can go here and pay for one thing. So you'll be able to take more tiles to make your mining and farming better, or you'll be able to go here through the pile and buy buildings, but you can only buy buildings that are available in your particular year. Each building costs quite a few resources of different types, but if you have those, you'll pay, and these buildings are going to be worth victory points at the end of the game. Now, a building isn't built, you're just claiming the building when you go to that spot. You're going to actually have to use actions to go on them to build the different parts of the building. But once you build it, then players will be able to use it for whatever the special ability is. Unless, of course, it's something, in this case, this is another place to get land and properties, but sometimes it just gives you a special ability. There's also available contracts that you'll be able to go to and claim these different contracts as long as you just have the resources and things, and then you'll get benefits here based on what you own and what you've put on the contract, and this is one of the main ways to get victory points. Now that's the game in a nutshell, and you might think, what? That doesn't seem that difficult at all. But what the thing is there's so many buildings. There's buildings printed on the board, like the trading post here. There's the stockyard where you'll be able to sell cattle. Over here at the market, you're able to sell the different foods from your farms. Over here you sell the silver from the silver mine. And as more and more buildings get built, there's all sorts of things. There's also a whole advanced section of the game where there's gunfights and more. The victory point track is here in the middle of the table, and the game will end when every plot on the board is filled with a building. At the end of that year, you'll finished it. Some goals will be scored. You have secret goals that you are trying to get. Players will know what some of them are, so whoever has the most of these will score points at the end of the game. And you've gotten points over the course of the game and the buildings, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Now, there's a lot of components in this game. I mean, an uber amount of components. So even though the components aren't, in my opinion, very stellar, I don't know that they could have done a whole lot with how much there is. I mean, they're very functional. You can see all the different resources here and the money, which is good. I like the art. It has this Western vibe to it. The board itself looks cool. You can see that it's actually made of different sections, and that's because you will flip the ends based on the number of players that are in the game. The events are going to be different each time. I mean, the amount of replayability here is pretty immense because you're going to be using a lot of different buildings as the game goes by. I guess my biggest complaint, really, component-wise, I just don't like counters that are attached to each other because when you punch them out, they just have all those things on the edge, and that's really my biggest complaint. It's not the prettiest of games, but it's very functional and has a very Western look to it. Now, Nevada City is a little overwhelming, I think, when you first jump into it. It is a worker placement game where you get to put out multiple workers at a time based on the action of the person that you have. And at the beginning of the game, there's a few places to put them out. Well, more than a few. There's actually, I don't know, at the beginning of any game, 8, 10, 12 places to put them out. As the game goes by, that number is huge. Now, occasionally someone will go to a spot first, and there's going to be spots that you'll fight over. You'll definitely maybe fight over getting more workers because that gives you more actions, although you got to give your workers wages, so that's kind of there. You want to go to the area and claim those buildings first. But then you got to get the resources to build buildings, and that's not cheap. This game is, I felt, fairly tight economically. You have to produce the silver and the cattle and the farms, use those, sell those, get the money to buy the resources, maybe build a building that gets you those resources more easily. There are many different paths to victory here. Now, the reason I'm not like raving about this game, because I really do like all that, is I felt like the game has just a bit clunky feel to it. I still enjoy it and I still will play it, but it doesn't feel like the game is just tremendously smooth. I felt like the parts of the game, as you're playing through them, you know, you sit there and sometimes there's long pauses and you try to figure out what to do next. And honestly, even though this game does have that advanced part to it, it feels fairly complicated even with the base game. To the point where I don't know that I would add in all that extra stuff. Maybe I'd add in some of it, maybe some of the extra buildings, but there is a ton in here. The game also could bog down. You could sit there and wait for someone else to take their turn, especially if they pick someone with 4 action tokens on them. But it's very interactive. Players are going to do what you want to do. And you have the option to kind of really go, maybe I want to build 6 silver mines in front of me, and then use workers who are good at silver mines and just get a lot of silver and sell it. But you never know. The price of silver may suddenly go down, which makes that strategy not as powerful. So diversification could be pretty handy. I think the theme ties in here pretty strongly. This is a very strong Western theme. It's not that all, gunfights, although, like I said, there's a little bit of gunfighting in the expansion or the advanced game in here, but it's really not that way. It's about taking this little dinko town and building it into a sprawling Western city. So, maybe I would have shaved off a few of the corners of this in development. There's many things going on. I would imagine in your first playthrough you'll probably get things wrong just because there's so much there, and it could be overwhelming for players just to be presented with such a vast array of choices. I kind of like the vast array of choices myself. I like the fact that there's buildings in the board that I'll never use because I'm so busy doing other things. I like the adding of more action spaces as time goes by. And then I like having my own plot in front of me where I can just kind of concentrate on producing more silver and cattle and things like that. So the game flows a little slower than I might want at points, but overall I think it's a good, themed, fun game. That's Nevada City. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower. Dice Tower Judgment approved.